Today I'm going to solve a Leetcode problem that's array type and the level is easy. It's called the number of good pairs. It's pretty easy explanation, pretty easy problem. So given an array of integers, nums, we're going to return the number of good pairs. And what a good pair is that a pair of I and j is good if nums I is equal to nums j. So if two numbers are equal, and then if I, the index, is less than j. So I always needs to be less than j in that case, so we'll write a nested loop that makes sure that j is always 1 plus 1 of I, so that I never passes j. So that'll cover that condition. And then we'll write a second condition that just checks that the elements are the same number. And if they are, we will have a variable that holds the good pairs, the numbers of good pairs. So the examples here are pretty great. So we've got an array here, and the output's going to be 4 because the good pairs here are indexed 0 and 3. So 1 and 1 here, that's one good pair. 0 and 4, so 0, index 0 and index 4 are the same number. 3 and 4, which is 3 here and 4 here. And then 2 and 5, which is this one and this one. So that is output of 4. This one is an output of 6. You can see that they're all the same. And then you can visually see here that none of these are the same. So they'll output 0. And another thing to note is that in here, Leetcode, they're giving you an array of integers. So you know that they're not going to throw in like a non-integer, like a letter like N or P, so we don't have to do any sort of checks for that because we know what's going to be input. So today I'm going to go through a solution that is considered brute force, not going to be any optimization, just kind of like an easy way, and just kind of breaking down how to solve this problem. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to have a variable that holds our good pairs, something that we can hold a count to. So the variable is going to be set to 0. So here we'll do let, and we'll just name it good pairs. We want it to be at 0 to start, okay? And then we're going to want a nested loop. So we're going to want the first loop to loop through as I, and we're going to have a nested loop that loops through as j. So the first one will be for let I equals 0, oh, not O, while I is less than, and normally we go to the end of the loop, nums. Normally we will loop through to the end of the array, but in this case, because we're going to have j looping through as well, and j is always going to be 1 up from I, we're going to actually want to stop right before the end. So I is going to loop through all of these and stop here because we know that we're always going to have a j, and j is going to go to the end. So we're going to do I is less than nums dot length minus 1. And then, of course, we'll increment through that. And then inside here, we're going to do j. So I'll let j equals, in here, instead of starting like we normally would at 0, we want it to always be +1, right, of I. So we're going to do I +1. And then here we will go to the end of the array. And just make sure if you're writing these, like, you know, sometimes I get a little tired and I'm just kind of like on autopilot. I have many times forgotten to put J here, so that will cause you a lot of bugs if you end up sticking like an I in there, just because maybe you're so used to, like, when you're writing your loops, writing I. So just make sure, like, if you're writing a nested loop, just be mindful. I know it sounds like a silly reminder, but I can't tell you how many times I have accidentally put an I instead of a J, and then my outcome is just like not what I'm wanting, and I have to go back and realize, like, like silly little mistakes like that. Okay, and so I always like to do my checks just to make sure that I'm actually like writing everything properly, and it's being output as expected. So before I even continue on and I write like my conditionals, I just want to console log and see what it looks like when it's looping through this. What is I and what is J? And just making sure that that's just like on point. So I'm going to console log I and J side by side, because I like to see what is the values of those. So I'll just say, I'll put my message in there, I, and then in here I'll do nums I, and then right next to it we'll do J, and we'll log what nums.j is. So if we come here, we can just use, we'll use this case that they have already set up. So I'll run it. Of course, it's not going to pass because we didn't even finish it, but it will be good to see kind of how it runs through. So we can see that this is going to be the first pass for I. Oh, we can view all of it. Okay, so the first pass for I is going to be right here, and you can see that it stays, right? I is going to continuously stay here, but J is going to, the first loop is going to be 2, the second loop is going to be 3, and then so on 1, 1, and 3. And then, can I make this bigger just to show? Okay. And then once we've gone through all the J's, we know that I is going to increment to 2. So here, it's going to be a little bit less, right? Because it has less, it's going to have less J. So 2, you can see 2 and 3. And then the next one will be 2 and 1. And then again, 2 and 1, and 2 and 3. Then it moves on, right? I moves up to be 3, goes through 1, 1, and 3. And then again, it moves on here. Ooh, sorry. Here. I guess it's a little confusing because there's these. So then you have 1 and 1, and then 1 and 3, and then it moves up again. And remember, our first loop stops here because it stops at the array length -1. So this is the last pass that I is going to be at, and then J is 3. And for J, that's the end of the array as well. So that's how that's looping through. That's exactly how we want it to loop through. We know that we're satisfying this here, I. You can see that I never passes the position J. So now we just need to do this condition, and it's just going to be one if statement inside here. So let's get rid of that. So we'll just do we'll say if nums I is equal to nums j, right? That's exactly what we're looking for here. Then we're going to increase the count of good pairs. So if we do good pairs plus plus, okay, that's cool. It just showed that that's being used now by unhighlighting. If you saw that change, that's very subtle. Okay, it's not going to do it again. Okay, so yeah, every time it passes through and it catches nums I equals nums j, good pairs is going to increment, and of course we know that that's what we want to return. So outside of the loop, outside of the entire loop here, because we don't want to do anything else within this loop, we're going to return good pairs. And this is pretty straightforward, so I don't expect there to be any weird edge cases. So I'm just going to use like all three of their cases, and if those pass, then I'm pretty sure that if I hit submit, that all their other checks are going to pass as well. So we'll just run that, and as it should output 4, like the example says. This one output 6, and this one 0. So I'll just go ahead and submit that. Fingers crossed that it's accepted, and yeah, it shows here. That's not too bad that it beat 61% of the users as far as the runtime goes. Oh, geez, even this is pretty good too. So yeah, I hope that breakdown was helpful, and thank you for watching this video. Have a good night, or day, or evening, or whenever you're watching this.